Bonsoir, French 101 students. Welcome to our last week of videos for Chapitre 2 before the exam comes up next week, the beginning of next week, so about a week from today. So we're going to be covering a few more topics this week to give you the last bits of information that you need for that exam. And the topic that we're going to begin with in this evening's video is quelques verbes à changement orthographique. And all that means, just to break it down, verb, I'm sure you recognize already, is verbs. Quelques, do you remember the word quelquefois from another video we looked at last week where we talked about adverbs of frequency, like how often you do something? It's related to that. Quelques just means some. So some verbs. À changement orthographique. In English, you might not really see the word orthography every day, but it means spelling. It's a fancy word for spelling in English. We don't use it a lot. But what this is basically saying is we're going to be looking at some verbs with spelling changes. So orthographique is an adjective that describes changes. Okay? And as we know, or you will soon learn, adjectives generally follow nouns in French and other related languages like Spanish or Italian or Portuguese, and they all kind of follow that rule. Okay, so what we'll see here is another set of ER verbs that are just a little bit different from the regular ER verbs you learned about last week. And I gave you a couple of coffee shop challenges to do on those. This week, I think a really good coffee shop challenge to do would be to practice some of these verbs with spelling changes. So look for that coming in the next day or so. Okay, so the rule basically is for verbs like préférer and répéter is that when an E or an E with an accent on it comes right before the ER at the end of the verb, you're going to change the spelling. It's going to change to the E with the accent going up to the left. Okay, so if we look at the way this is conjugated, it would be je préfère, tu préfères, il, elle, on préfère. Yeah, so they're all pronounced exactly the same. The only difference is the spelling so far. And then on the other side of our conjugation chart, it is nous préférons, vous préférez, il ou elle préfère. So the je, tu, il, elle, on, and il, elle in the plural are the only ones that really change their spelling. Nous and vous stay the same, except they just add the regular stems to the end, on and a. So it's really pretty easy to remember if you just think of it like a shoe or a boot, or an L even. So all the verbs in the singular column, like I, you, he, she, and it, and then the plural he and she, all of them have a spelling change, but nous and vous remain the same. The same thing with répéter. It becomes je répète, tu répètes, il, elle, on répète, and then nous répétons, vous répétez, and il, elle répète. Okay, so we see a similar pattern with both of those verbs. Okay, so moving on to another set of verbs with some spelling changes. We have also verbs that end in yer, like envoyer. And in this case, when we have a verb that ends in that yer ending, the Y changes to an I in all forms except nous and vous, just like we saw with préférer and répéter. So we would say j'envoie, tu envoies, il, elle, on envoie, nous envoyons, vous envoyez, il, elle envoie. Okay, so the spelling you can see in that kind of L shape, as we see in the conjugation here, the Y changes to an I. Okay, and the last set of verbs we'll take a look at here would be verbs like voyager and commencer. Yeah, voyager, of course, is a great verb to know because I'm sure we would all love to be traveling somewhere right now, but the pandemic is making that difficult. But this is a useful verb for later on, right? So with these kinds of verbs, you're going to see a spelling change in the nous form. So it would be je voyage, tu voyages, il, elle, on voyage. And then in the nous form, because if we didn't put that E in there, it would sound like nous voyageons, and that definitely would sound different from the rest of the verb conjugation that we have there. It would totally change the pronunciation of the verb. And then we have vous voyagez and il, elle voyage. So it's really the fact that we've got an O following a G that we need to insert that E in there. And then with the verb commencer, je commence, tu commences, il, elle, on commence, and then nous commençons. Okay, so this one changes to the cédille, the C with the little tail on the bottom, because if we didn't have that there to make it sound like a S, it would sound like commençons, and it would be strange to pronounce it in that way, and it would disrupt the way the whole conjugation sounds. So we need to put that particular version of C in there. And then vous commencez, il, elle commence. And you might even notice with the verb commencer that it's related to the word for graduation in English, a commencement ceremony. So you can think of a commencement ceremony as basically the beginning of the next stage of your life. I think that's where that comes from. And it's always interesting to see how words relate to each other from one language to another, and how much vocabulary we actually share. All right, we're going to look at one other topic in this video, and that is la journée. Sometimes you might have noticed that I sign off an email or a weekly announcement with bonne journée, right? And that's just a way of saying have a great day, and I'm wishing you that for your whole day. Jour, just by itself, is just the word for day. But when I extend it and I want it to be the entire day, then I'm going to add that ending N-E with the accent and the other E, because it's now feminine. So, la journée. Okay, notice on this slide and the next few slides that you're going to be learning about some new ways to ask questions. Up to now, the main way you've learned about asking questions is just to use intonation. So with this first question right here, I can say, vous êtes à l'université? Like, are you at the university? And I can get a yes or no answer to that question, right? But I can also make sure my listener knows I'm asking a question by adding est-ce que to the beginning. And est-ce que is basically making this a yes-no question. So, est-ce que vous êtes à l'université? So, are you at the university? It's asking exactly the same thing. But I can also build upon that, and I can add an extra question, word, or expression to get more information. So, I can ask, quand est-ce que vous êtes à l'université? And notice I'm making a liaison here. So I'm kind of sounding the D at the end of this word that would normally be silent. So quand is when. When I add it on to est-ce que vous êtes à l'université, I'm now asking, when are you at the university? Okay, je suis à l'université tous les jours. So every day, all the days. Sauf le weekend. Okay, sauf means except. Except the weekend. Du lundi au jeudi. So from Monday to Thursday. I can name individual days. Le lundi, le mardi, le mercredi, etc. Okay, I can say le matin, the morning, l'après-midi, afternoon, le soir, the evening. I can also talk about times. So I can say, je suis à l'université de 10 heures à 4 heures. So from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Or toute la journée. So the entire day. And this word toute really emphasizes the length of that day. It's not just a day, it's the whole day. And so you might be really tired at the end of that day. Okay, another way I can make my question more specific is by asking à quelle heure? So at what hour, literally, or what time? À quelle heure est-ce que vous arrivez à l'université? So what time do you arrive at the university? J'arrive à l'université à 9h15. So remember that when 9 comes before, when the number 49, neuf comes before heure, it's going to transform that F into a V, like a V sound. À 9h15. So at 9:15. Okay. And then going down, we also see où, which means where. So, où est-ce que vous déjeunez en général? So, where do you have lunch in general? So, déjeuner means to have lunch. It's like a single verb that means literally to have lunch. So, je déjeune, so I have lunch, chez moi, or chez des amis, or chez quelqu'un d'autre. So, chez, if you remember from a previous video, just means at the home of somebody. So, chez moi would be at my place. Chez des amis would be the place of my friends. Chez quelqu'un d'autre just means somebody else. So, at somebody else's place. Or, je déjeune au restaurant universitaire. That's just a long way of saying the cafeteria, the school cafeteria. I think in more like informal, everyday French, people would say au resto U. So it's like saying like a short form of restaurant, resto, and then universitaire becomes U, au resto U. Okay, sometimes we say the caf. I know I used to say that when I was in college. Okay, je déjeune au café Trianon. So the name of a specific cafe. Or je déjeune dans un fast food. So in a fast food restaurant. Okay, so lots of ways already to ask more specific questions. And you'll definitely be talking about your own routines in the exam. So it's really important to study these different types of questions and also to study the different ways that you can talk about your routine. Okay, we can also add, and we've seen this before, even in chapitre 1, if you add the word que, the E is missing here, but it basically is just what. So, qu'est-ce que vous aimez faire après les cours? So, what do you like to do after your classes? Qu'est-ce que? Okay. J'aime aller au parc, à la gym, aller chez une amie or chez un ami. So I like to do these different things. I like to go to the park, I like to go to the gym or to my friend's house. J'aime rentrer chez moi. Okay, so I like to go back to my house. Rentrer means to go back. Entrer without the R would mean like to enter somewhere. Rentrer, if you add the E, or I mean the R to the beginning of that, it's kind of like the RE in English that means like to do something again, like to redo. So rentrer just means to kind of like enter again, to go back to your own house. J'aime sortir avec des amis. J'aime dormir. J'aime manger. Okay, we like to do all of these things in our spare time, right? So sortir avec des amis is to go out with some friends. Dormir is to sleep. Manger is to eat. We like to do all these things, right? Okay, another way you can ask a more specific question would be with avec qui. Avec is with, qui is who, or in this case, we would translate that as whom, because it's coming after the preposition with, and that's kind of how that works with who or whom. If it comes after a preposition, it's going to be whom, if you're following the rules very strictly. Avec qui est-ce que vous aimez mieux sortir? So with whom do you like to go out with the best? Mieux would be like the best. What do you prefer? What is better for you? So if we were to translate this in a more informal way, it would be like, who best do you like to go out with? J'aime mieux sortir. I like to go out with most. Avec mon copain, ma copine. So mon copain, ma copine could be like loosely translated as boyfriend or girlfriend, or even friend of a male or female friend. Avec mon mari, ma femme. So mari is husband. Ma femme is my wife. Avec des copains, des copines is just putting copain and copine in the plural form. And so it's just saying who you like to spend your time with. All right, just a couple more. So two final question words to look at here. Pourquoi Est-ce que vous préférez sortir avec lui, avec elle, avec eux, avec elle? Okay, lots of information here. So pourquoi is why. So why do you prefer to go out with him, lui, with her, elle, with them, a group of males or mixed males and females, or elle, just a group of females? So why do you prefer to go out with them? Parce qu'il est or parce qu'elle est. Parce que means because. So parce qu'il est riche, because he's rich. Parce qu'il est beau, because he's good looking. Parce qu'il est intelligent, and because he's smart or intelligent. Okay. Parce qu'elle est riche, belle, intelligente. Okay, so we can use the feminine forms there when we're talking about elle. Okay, parce qu'ils sont amusants, parce qu'ils sont marrants, parce qu'ils sont intellectuels. Okay, we can also use the feminine forms of these. Parce qu'elles sont amusantes, marrantes, intellectuelles. Okay, and notice with parce que that we drop the E on que when it's connecting to a word that begins with a vowel. And finally, we return to the question word quand, which again means when. So, quand est-ce que vous préférez sortir ensemble? So when do you prefer to go out? And this might be a new word for you. Ensemble means together. If you've ever played like a musical instrument in high school, maybe you were in band or something. I was for many years. And you might have used the word ensemble, right? That's the English borrowing of this word. So if you say, yeah, I play in an ensemble, so it means like a group of fellow musicians. So a band or an orchestra, or maybe like a small group, like a chamber music group or something. But of course, in French, this is pronounced ensemble, and it means together. So it makes sense that we use that word in musical kinds of circles to talk about people who play music together, right? So, nous préférons sortir, we prefer to go out, le vendredi soir, Friday evening, or le weekend. So we prefer to go out on the weekend. Okay, so this video, just to sum everything up, gives you an explanation of all of those verbs that change their spellings, just to review them really quickly. Préférer, répéter, envoyer, voyager, and commencer. And then we also looked at different question words we could use to talk about our day. When we do certain things, at what time, where we do them, what we do at certain times or like to do, who we spend our time with, and why we do certain things. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little bit more to talk about if you're having a conversation in French. You can do more than just ask a simple yes/no question. So that's definitely putting you at a whole other level in your ability to communicate with other people. Okay, so we'll wrap it up right there, and we'll move into a couple of new topics next time. Les mots interrogatifs. So we're going to be kind of summarizing what we learned with question words in this video and adding a few more. So I hope you all have a great night. Bonne nuit.